Hey yo, welcome to Wednesday on Golden State Boulevard. I'll be your host for today. Kick back, relax, and hopefully you'll hear something interesting from me on the topic of masculine and feminine traits. Disclaimer, just right at the beginning so I don't have to say it over and over again. I don't think it's really fair to describe traits as being inherently masculine or feminine because, of course, the way a person acts has a lot more to do with the way they were socialized, who they were socialized around, what types of values those people instilled in them, and that sort of thing, and less so, I believe, to do with whether they were born a boy or a girl, or whether their gender is male or female. So, yes, I don't want to hear people saying, "You can't dictate whether a trait is masculine or feminine, that's not fair." I know that. I'm saying it now. Alright. Whew. Glad we got that out of the way. So to dive right into the topic, I've always had quite a bit of a mixture of quote-unquote masculine and feminine traits, all the way down to my two favorite animes growing up, which were Yu-Gi-Oh! And Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon, of course, being very much more marketed towards girls, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Being much more marketed towards boys. Sailor Moon is, of course, a little bit softer, and even though in both they're fighting evil, that is the overarching point of both shows, Sailor Moon is full of a lot of feminism, and it's all about girl power. That's made very, very apparent. There's hardly any male protagonists. It's almost exclusively females. And it's all about them being strong, independent women. And so there is that one, which is quite different from Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is definitely aimed at boys, as I said, and is a little bit more angry, very pumped full of testosterone, you know, people yelling at each other across games of monsters. And there's hardly any female protagonists. The few that there are don't play a major role in much of anything except to be occasionally rescued by some of the male protagonists. There's one major female duelist in the original series, and she was nowhere near the skill level that the main guys were. She was always beaten by them. There's one season where they try to have her make some kind of a stand about that, but she ends up just being rescued by one of the male protagonists, Joey, again. And so it's definitely not promoting a huge amount of feminism. You could almost argue that it's a little bit sexist, but, I mean, what can you do? Nothing's perfect. I would say that certainly both of those had a big impact on the way that I grew up. Not inherently in and of themselves, but the fact that I was looking up to two very different kinds of hero, I guess you could say. One was a woman, and the other ones were very much men. And so I feel like that was a big part of my life in many facets. On the one hand, I looked up to my mother, who's a very strong, independent woman, and very masculine, very tomboyish. And then I also looked up to a lot of other men. I didn't really ever have a very feminine role model ever. Never ever. Like, not a woman who was a feminine woman anyway. And so a lot of my socializing was done with guys or with very masculine women. And so, as a result, I don't really have a very good grasp on how girls in general, that is to say girls who adhere to a lot of these social norms, a lot of these stereotypes about girls, I don't understand them very well. I don't get along with them very well as a result. And so, almost all of my friends are guys. All of my best friends, more or less, are guys. And they just make me feel a lot more at ease, I guess you could say. A couple of the traits that I have that I feel like allow me to get along better with guys than girls, typically, are that I'm very assertive, and I'm not afraid to say what I mean and mean what I say the first time. And I think that puts a lot of girls off because they want there to be more of a discussion, for example, in group projects, and I just want to say, like, no, let's just do it this way, unless you have a better idea right this second. No, we're doing it my way. I'm very competitive in a sense that I always feel like I need to assert, there's that word again, assert, I'm very assertive. I like to assert that I'm the best at any given thing, at any given time, and that can be quite ruthless of me. I don't always, take the time to consider how that might affect somebody else. I don't always take the time to consider that not everything is a competition, and it doesn't have to be, and that sort of thing. That's a direct result of having a sibling, by the way. Everything was a competition between us. I have a brother, just, to throw that out there. I can also be quite stubborn, which I don't really know. None of these traits, I don't know if you would say they're really masculine, but there's certainly ones that have allowed me to get along with other guys really well, because they're things that we seem to have in common, so I'm inclined to think these are more masculine traits. I'm not very much of a caregiver. I said in one of our videos about being a parent that I don't really have any kind of maternal or paternal instincts whatsoever. I don't really have a very good relationship with little kids. I'm not really very sure how to interact with them. I always end up just acting as though they're my age, or I end up acting as though they're way below the age that they actually are, and neither one of those things really work out really well, so they don't really particularly gravitate towards me. I'm much more of a breadwinner type thing. It's like, yeah, if I was ever, which I wouldn't, to decide that children are the right path for me, I would never ever be the one to stay at home with them. No, I would actually not be very good at that. I would certainly be the one to go get a job. I'm very much of the opinion that I should be able to take care of myself. I should be able to be very independent and not dependent, certainly, on anybody else for anything. And I really, really get frustrated when I have to ask for help. I don't like doing that. I certainly don't ask for directions. I don't particularly want help with anything. I'd rather figure it out myself, even if that takes a lot longer than if I would have just asked for help in the first place. Just to sort of wrap up, as a bottom line type deal, I think it's very unfortunate that a lot of times in the trans community, in the gender nonconforming communities, there is a lot of pressure to be very hypermasculine or hyperfeminine in order to pass. I think that's horribly unfortunate. I don't think that that is the way that it should be, because I feel like that limits the way a person can be and inhibits them from being who they are. I think if you are a trans man, there's no reason why you should not be able to wear makeup, wear whatever you want to wear, to be interested in whatever you want to be interested in, because that doesn't make you any less of a man inherently. You are a man because you feel like a man. You are a man because your gender is male, not because you're interested in cars or sports or bodybuilding. I do think that it would behoove anybody who falls under the trans or gender nonconforming umbrella to evaluate whether or not their interests are a direct result of what they're actually interested in, or if they've been pressured into being interested in something because of their community or because of social standards that have been set by people who have no business setting them in the first place. Yes, that's very much my bottom line. And until I see you guys next Wednesday, take care of yourselves, stay strong, stay happy, stay safe. Alright, I'll check you next Wednesday. Take care.